have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law.
T.I. son King Harris. So allegedly, I guess he got to jail and they jumped on him in there. They say it's bad. And allegedly, I don't know how true it is, but you got people putting in the comments that somebody busted open.
King Harris's most recent behind bars video went viral online and has been the subject of constant discussion. Tiny's youngster has been behaving as if he were destined to lead a difficult life. Now, many are really doubting whether he is actually participating in this much circulated jail video or is just acting in it. Let's look at what actually happened in those pubs and King's run-ins with the cops. King Harris is not your average suburban kid pretending to be tough. This young man's father is Clifford Ty Harris, the Tama Tiny Harris and the Southern Monarch. Most individuals could only dream of the fame, power, and influence that came with his birth. But here's the twist. Sometimes all that privilege becomes a trap when you are eager to show that you are genuinely interested in street life. When Dunwee police arrested King on October 14, 2024, following what should have been a routine traffic stop, everything came to a head. And this wasn't just any celebrity child being pulled over. It plunged into complete chaos.
I stopped you because you crossed double yellow lines to turn left onto Mount Vernon. Well, I'm saying that you weren't allowed to turn left right there because it's separated by those double yellow lines.
I apologize.
I got you. Do you have your license on you? Go ahead and step it up. Okay, Miss.
At this moment, King's foolish choices finally caught up with him, and in the worst possible way. He's cutting through double yellow lines and nearly hits a police officer while driving his flashy BMW out of a chevron, surely feeling unstoppable. You should never drive recklessly in front of the blue-clad boys, as any streetwise person knows. However, King's street teaching was clearly flawed in some significant ways. The cop hits the lights and pulls him over for that stunt. But that's when things start to get shocking instead of unpleasant. As soon as the policeman gets close to the car, the whip starts to emit a strong odor. The strap is then seen lying on King's hip. We are discussing a loaded 9mm that is just resting there. If you're really conscious in the streets, you already witness it. The first novice mistake. Don't provide the law as an easy method to find your business. The situation takes a drastic turn for the worse at this point. The officer finds that there is an active bench warrant in Pickens County after running King's info. In 2022, he fled court after being arrested for DUI, speeding, and driving with a suspended license. A completely new side of King Harris was also exposed when the body cam footage from that bust was posted online months later. The tough-talking, chest-out guy was not the young man we see flexing online. No. This young man hardly understood his own legal situation and was confused and irritated. This is the same King that was yelling on Instagram that he would pull up on anyone. So you should take note of that shift in intensity.
What's my warrant for?
So your warrant is for failure to appear. Dispatch is going to call in and make sure it's still valid.
Failure to appear where? I didn't have no court dates.
It's for DUI out of Pickens County.
Out of Pickens County?
Could you go and confirm that warrant?
The only DUI, I had a suspicion of a DUI a long time ago and it was dismissed, so I don't know what they...
However, he is calm, confused, and trying to cooperate when real consequences arise. Which counties were waiting for him was unknown to him. And that isn't at all street smart. That's reckless. That's just normal child behavior in the suburbs. King even claimed that his 2022 DUI conviction had been dropped and pledged to avoid any further court appearances. But the reality is obvious to anyone who knows the streets. Our system remembers, even if you don't. You don't simply believe that warrants ought to be eliminated. When officers searched his BMW, they found exactly what you would expect from someone who is desperately trying to find work. King shouted out that there were multiple guns in the ride, including an AR-15 style rifle and a couple other weapons, adding to the already tense situation. Those belonged to his passengers. This brings us to the absurd paradox. You wouldn't volunteer to assist the cops if you were truly out here handling business or carrying weight. The basic rule of hood is that. But by exposing the contents of his car, King is essentially begging them not to search. That's not a gangster. That is erratic behavior from a wealthy child. However, it was considerably more than a routine traffic stop because of King's prior juvenile crime record, and things swiftly went from careless to dangerous. As a convicted criminal, he now faces potential federal sanctions for carrying a weapon. Are we talking about significant time here? Avoid slapping someone.
He got arrested for a failure to appear ticket for a traffic violation, so they arrested him. But we know this is King, so we're just gonna call it. We're gonna call it that they locked him up for.
At the time of the arrest, King's annoyance is clearly erupting as reality sets in. He keeps asking the cops to tell him what they expect to find. His tone sharpened as they searched his car more. That tough guy persona on the internet. Everything was collapsing rapidly due to real hardship, exposing a young man who was clearly unprepared for the consequences. The next day, King was extradited to Pickens County after being transported to the DeKalb County Jail. Additionally, because the courts were closed on Columbus Day, he was unable to post bond right away. The brutal reality of being confined to a cell must have struck him hard at that moment. No Instagram live, no crazy outbursts. This time, that wouldn't help him. Even though King was later released on bond and the warrant was eventually recalled, the stain could not be removed. His criminal history was now widely known. Additionally, he was not charged with street stripes. It was for warrants for non-appearance and minor traffic violations. Real street cats were clowning the entire thing. Worse, all of this occurred shortly after his baby shower, just as he and his girlfriend were preparing to have their first child. Jania E.P.'s, King's girl who would soon become the mother of his child, watched her guy plummet while he played gangster instead of behaving like a grown man. Dad should. The King also received no sympathy at all from social media. People were leaving comments in droves. They claim that he has a strong desire to be a gangster, and Tip will allow him to sit in there as well. The internet has a proven track record of exposing fake macho men, and this time was no exception. DJ Academics provided what might have been the most scathing yet accurate take on the entire fiasco. AK basically articulated what everyone else was already thinking. People were openly mocking King and making his minor traffic violations look serious because he was so desperate to get street cred. That resonated deeply because it exposed the absurdity of King's whole situation. How could someone who had every opportunity and benefit in the world from birth feel the need to advocate for a lifestyle that the majority of people are frantically attempting to avoid? I don't understand why King has such a great desire to be perceived as a street guy. Why, for instance, does he find the struggles of being a street person so intriguing? Street dudes aren't like this. King's detachment from the realities of street life was evident throughout this entire novel. He became more than just renowned as a result of his arrest. It also demonstrated how closely he and Tip were related as father and son. T.I. had been tough talking out here, saying he would cut King off financially and let him deal with the consequences. But those natural maternal instincts must have been triggered by the reality that his son was actually in prison. Nevertheless, despite T.I.'s influence and connections, limits still existed. This was more than he could just wave his hand away from. Regardless of his amount of riches or celebrity, King had to face the music, just like everyone else. When the body cam footage was finally made public in August 2025, it sparked another online sensation. The video did not show a youthful leader who was bold and street-tested. It showed a polite but confused child who was completely out of his environment. That was not at all like the photo he displayed on the internet. The worst part is here. The arrest in 2024 was only the beginning. Rumors of more serious legal consequences surfaced as 2025 went on. King was allegedly sentenced to 5 years in prison. The damage had already been done, even though these stories were unsupported and more hearsay than fact. King's Instagram persona suddenly collided with the harsh reality of the law as a result of that arrest. When King was confronted with real criminal charges, his claims of independence were put to the test. The results also didn't appear to be too challenging. His cooperation with law enforcement and total confusion about it was clear. He had personal legal problems. He had not been prepared for this life. It was clear that King Harris was drowning in waters far above his head. But that arrest was only the trigger. He was not just put to the test by the subsequent storm of personal misery. His entire family was shattered. It's quiet on the streets. And King would have to live with the fallout from that lesson. It goes horribly wrong to pay the price for honesty. It was a sobering lesson of reality to watch one of the most embarrassing family outbursts ever caught on camera. We're talking about the infamous event from the November 2023 Atlanta Falcons game, where the Harris family dynamic exploded during an angry webcast in front of a live audience. Furthermore, it was more than a simple quarrel between a parent and child. Real-time exposure of severe generational traumas was occurring. Consider this. King tried to prove to the world and even his own fathers that he is not a softie by going live on Instagram from a sumptuous suite at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The irony was as ubiquitous as Atlanta traffic, and it was felt by all in the audience. Simply listen to that feeling. While live broadcasting from one of the most expensive seats in the arena, young King is going all out, saying that he never had it easy and talking about his strict approach to business. The discrepancy was quite loud, and it was definitely audible on the streets, but I wasn't going to ignore it. In the background stands King Harris. What are we discussing, man? Dude, hurry up. Don't play with people now. Hurry up, man. What about this? Dude, get moving. You're talking about King terms standing on Sun. King replied, Indeed, King. He claimed that when things got too heated, the so-called King of the South had to put his child in a headlock during the live broadcast and check his own blood on camera, since the child was pulling up on him and constantly running his lips. Family dysfunction is a problem in every home, regardless of wealth, notoriety, or luxury, as the world was shown at that one moment. The altercation revealed something raw about King's emotional state. The never-ending battle of becoming a member of hip-hop royalty by birth. What happens if you grow up in a wealthy household yet follow a culture that values adversity? Throughout his life, King has grappled with that question. The drama has also been trickling out for everyone to see. Throughout the family outburst, Tiny didn't hold back. The internet went into a frenzy as she dropped a bombshell. She candidly revealed that King continued to suck on a pacifier until she was 12 years old. That one confession completely ruined the tough-talking persona he had been trying to convey. The streets will always remember such filth. In an instant, it produced fodder for all the skeptics who were already doubting his sincerity. In actuality, though, this family dispute wasn't found overnight. You can see the fractures starting to appear back in 2019, when King was 14 years old and begged his parents to send him to school so he could pursue rap full-time. T.I. was also aware of the warning signs. His response was straightforward in those days. Don't sugarcoat it. You still haven't put forth enough effort. Pop saw his child trying to escape the grind by pursuing stardom without putting in the required sweat equity. However, the King was not supposed to hear any of that wisdom. That was when it became clear how King's wealthy upbringing contrasted with his desperate street desires. Strange cases began to surface online shortly after. Moments so absurd that the internet cruelly ridiculed him, damaging his reputation. Who could forget the aluminum foil bowl disaster in January 2024? King said he went online to post a video of himself eating ramen from a homemade foil bowl after running out of plates. But the hood didn't think that story was true. The fake was immediately called out. Challenging, highlighting the discrepancy. You're flexing like you're starving in the trenches, living in a home with maids and butlers, and dressing in opulent clothing. In the comment section, they were vicious. He truly wants to be from the trenches, clowns joke. But he's eating foil bowls in a mansion. Never in my life have I eaten on that day. I have to go to my grandmother's house because I'm getting in like a baby to go to yours. You have to hold your breath. I would prefer not to enter these gates. I'd like to be outside in the neighborhood. As usual, the internet has proven to be the most effective medium for revealing false suffering. Things got embarrassing during a high school basketball game just when you thought they couldn't get much worse. During halftime, King rushed onto the stage to perform one of his songs. Instead of inspiring the audience, the students just heckled and laughed at him. Even high school students mock you during your own performance because of how untrustworthy you are. His effort to use the phrase "standing on business" to instigate a rivalry with comedian Drusky, however, was his worst mistake. It turned into another viral moment on the internet, prompting questions about King's genuineness and whether he was just seeking attention. King strove to claim that he was the one who first used the phrase "standing on business," even threatening to stop Drusky if he didn't get credit. It was overdone from the start. KY didn't hold back in his retaliation against the Breakfast Club. He went on, "He's pulling up on you." KY basically confirmed what everyone already thought. Come on, man. The king always comes home to comfort and luxury, even when he says harsh things. Instead of letting it go, King used weak personal attacks to describe Drusky's weight, calling him built like a punch buggy, etc. However, it was too late. There was nothing dangerous about him. He seemed under pressure to gain status rather than respect. Then a bigger embarrassment showed up. Imagine yourself at the age of 20, struggling with basic spelling, while your father, T.I. himself, watches in disbelief as King was exposed on 2 Chainz's podcast for his incapacity to spell the word tomorrow. The video immediately went viral, and not in a good manner. His entire past started to be questioned. What kind of education did this young man really get? The picture was crumbling piece by piece. The reality was conveyed vividly by these occurrences. King Harris found himself torn between 2 realities that he could not truly control. Too young and blind to work, but too wealthy to understand true adversity. Genuine admiration via achievement. On the streets, truthfulness and results are the only 2 things that garner respect. King hadn't either. When things became too hot, he put himself in a headlock for the world to see on the live stream. When T.I. finally lost patience and stopped giving his son financial support, he showed him the hard love that perhaps should have been offered much sooner. By then, however, the damage was already done. King was racing toward consequences that could not be reversed by wealth or position. The unfortunate truth is that King had everything he needed to win a real battle. He was wealthy, well-connected, and had a father who knew rap better than most. Instead of using those resources to carve out his own path, he was busy trying to convince the world that he was the product of someone else's suffering. By the end of 2024, the warning indicators were apparent. A harsh reality check was on the horizon for King Harris. His fictitious identity was being exposed one by one. His relationship with his family was quite tense. And instead of thriving, his music career was deteriorating. Cosplay is not welcomed by the public. King would soon learn that lesson all too well. But this is the worst. Family drama and social networking don't work. It was merely an antecedent. What took place after that? It became much more serious. King's fixation on establishing his street cred was about to land him in major legal hot water. Tests that would put his assertions about taking business seriously to the test. For the Harris family, 25 was more than just another year. It hit in a different way. Word started to get out on the streets. King supposedly received a sentence of 5 years in prison. As if that weren't foul enough, rumors began to spread that he had been jumped inside a Georgia County jail. People's acceptance of those rumors, whether they were real or merely online gossip, shows how severely King's reputation had already declined. According to the chat, King was brutally beaten by numerous inmates in what seemed to be a prearranged ambush, but the security cameras conveniently did not capture the full scene. It was the worst thing that could happen to someone who boasted for years that he was headed for the streets, if that story was accurate. This is the reality of jail politics. Your reputation is not destroyed by the bars that close behind you. Real inmates will test you if you have been fronting online as soon as they get the chance. In addition, the alleged attack on King was described as a targeted attack. He continued to develop the image of an ambitious gangster, and his family name was well recognized. Interpretation: he became a victim inside those confines since he was unable to sustain such an aggressive attitude. T.I.'s purported response revealed the depth of desperation. A targeted attack was prevented after he allegedly called the jailhouse and begged for his son's release. Allegedly, the same father who had promised to raise King with tough love was now begging the system to protect him. You may be certain that the game altered rapidly after that. According to reports, King was battling for his life inside those gates, but a fresh tempest was brewing at home that may completely upend the Harris family. Talk about King and his fiancée Jania Epps' unadulterated baby mama drama was all over the streets by September 2025. This event revealed King's personal life, which had descended into chaos. The charges were absurd. Reports claimed that Jania had been defrauding the king of his money while pretending to be in love. There were rumors that she was asking T.I. and Tiny for money before the kid was even born, using their unborn son as leverage to gain access to the Harris family's wealth. Anyone versed with hood politics knows that receiving a reprimand from his baby mama is one of the coldest L's a man may ever experience. Reports state that T.I.'s response was harsh. He allegedly told Jania, to put it plainly, she wasn't there primarily to find love but rather to take what she could from the Harris vault. He made it apparent that she would not attempt to access the family's finances. But then was when the family's strife reached a whole new level of catastrophe. Rumor had it that King had retaliated against his father by revealing a supposedly murky list of T.I.'s alleged extramarital affairs, and Tiny was gradually heading toward divorce. Now, whether or not that list was accurate or merely a collection of hearsay didn't even matter. King's connection with his father had gotten so toxic that people were suspicious that he would betray him in this way. And then the chaos went on. King's personal choices about relationships added to the unrest. Earlier in 2025, he came out as having an open relationship with Jania, claiming that she didn't mind his adultery, as long as it didn't lead to any issues. Such a confession exposed a whole new degree of instability in his most private and intimate life, on top of his legal troubles. Still, the blows kept occurring. An explosive chain of events began in September 2025 when a drunken guy openly mocked and spread a cruel story about leaked intimate footage that allegedly showed him with another man. Whether or not the recording was real was irrelevant. Boozy exploited the rumors to discredit King's tough guy persona. In fact, he dropped the harsh line. The boy with the tapes took them out. Mama isn't enjoying herself. The whole family is losing their mind. You cannot raise a roadway if you soften yourself. Boozy's remarks weren't just a jest. These attacks were well planned. King wasn't the only one he was making fun of. He was aiming straight for T.I. and asked whether the King of the South could muster a so-called street army. That kind of disrespect is fairly common in ghetto culture. It simultaneously attacks the son's integrity and the father's legacy. Boozy caused a commotion, but T.I. was already in trouble. The scandals, the family breakup, the legal maze, it was all piling up. Insiders further claimed that by mid-2025, T.I.'s soul was disintegrating. He was reported to have fallen into complete exhaustion, resignedly admitting that despite his wealth, influence, and street smarts, he could not stop his son from committing himself. That statement marked a dramatic shift from a father displaying harsh love to one who was acknowledging his failure. This was the clearest sign yet that the Harris family narrative had progressed beyond damage control. There was a collapse. All the financial issues did was add gasoline to the fire. Tiny and T's huge $71 million victory over Emga Entertainment in court was reduced to just $17.9 million as soon as July 2025 rolled around. Gossip started to circulate. Would the Harris family use the payout to help King out of his legal bind? Or will T.I. finally stand his ground and abandon his kid to deal with the crisis on his own? The rumors had the internet in a frenzy. The degree of the collapse was evident, even in the ostensibly happier times. In September 2025, King made headlines again when he promised Tootie free veneers in return for participating in a fitness challenge. Although the ridiculousness was ridiculed, It also exposed King's mindset, as he persisted in using showy gestures to acquire power instead of facing the grave problems that were ruining him. King Harris made the best decision there. Generous on the surface, but tone-deaf to the bigger picture. Displaying wealth constantly while disregarding the lessons that are really crucial. From a distance, King's 2025 story appears to be a perfect storm. Advantages, bad decisions, and results that even millions of people couldn't alter. In contemporary hip-hop history, his transformation from a protected star kid to a possible jail target is one of the most remarkable. But King's saga was never about one young man's wrongdoing. It became a cautionary tale about fame, family, and the dangers of living up to the expectations of others. You cannot back down. King Harris's downfall is not only his story. It acts as a mirror reflecting society in general and hip-hop culture in particular. His frantic pursuit of street fame exposes a sinister reality. In this game, people are more likely to value authenticity and the appearance of adversity than actual success. The issue is that King had all the resources, contacts, and instruments required to win in a legal manner. He gambled everything, though, and looked for approval in the worst places. The controversy surrounding the Harris family showed that fame or fortune cannot eradicate dysfunction. They merely raised awareness of it. King took a reckless route that nearly destroyed their individual legacies in an attempt to forge his own identity far from Ty's shadow. It is much more tragic because it was all avoidable. If King had concentrated on his music, properly tapped into his family ties, and produced something authentic, he could have achieved success on his own terms. Instead, his obsession with proving he was really like that led to him being publicly humiliated, getting into legal issues, and being abandoned by his family. In the hardest way imaginable, King Harris discovered that the streets are cruel. Does he bounce back and turn things around? Or does he become just another casualty in the never-ending conflict between privilege and street cred? Please share your thoughts in the space provided for comments below. If you're doing well with this breakdown, don't just scroll.